and I remember sitting down in Lakewood at Deegan's and you sharing the story of your mom's background. And so it was so remarkable. I mean, do we want to tell the whole story? Do we want to?
I can set it up, giving them enough that they're going to want more.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Spilling the Beans. Today I'm sitting down with my good friend Megan McKercher. I have known her for almost 10 years. We actually sat in a real estate licensing class together when I first got my license in Ohio. And we're sitting next to each other. I noticed she was an entrepreneur. Obviously I was buying rental real estate and a bunch of different stuff, and just both goofy, quirky personalities, started getting along and hanging out, and she was in a real estate business. And so what she does is residential assisted living. And it's got a rental real estate component along with a business operations component. And you're gonna be blown away when you hear about how much money a single house can make in a year. So I'm excited to sit down with Megan, talk about how she's scaled her residential assisted living business. And she also has this unbelievable book coming out with her mom. Her mom's got this wild story that I'm gonna try to tag that into and loop in a little bit of teasers on what this story is about. It'll blow your mind. So I'm excited to go sit down with Megan. Hop in, welcome to Spill the Beans. Megan McKercher, give me a hug first.
How are you?
How are you? All right, so Megan, you and I go, when did we meet? We met at
real estate class.
Real estate classes.
Yeah.
So, real estate classes, 2014?
I mean, yeah, I feel like it's been that long now.
13 or 14? 8 years?
Yeah.
Okay, so, as I told you guys kind of in the beginning, Megan and I have known each other for a long time, and saw me on the come up, kinda, right?
Yeah.
And so I like having people who have known me before I was like successful on social media. But I've always had a ton of respect for you and what you've done in business. And both from a business, building a good business, but also, balancing that with awesome lifestyle and being able to travel and have some fun and take care of friends and family and do all that good stuff. So why don't let's start out with like sharing your story. I want to go in heavily in the business, but then I know that you and your mom have the book that's coming out.
Yeah.
And so I want to wrap with that towards the end. So let's start with the business side of things though. So give me your background. How did you get into residential assisted living homes?
Absolutely. So I started right out of college. My mom took care of my grandpa in our home when we were growing up, and I just fell in love with seniors in general. I was always an old soul. So I knew that I wanted to get into that aspect, but not as a nurse. My mom is a nurse, and I knew that I was going to go the business route. I love seniors, but I wasn't the type of person that could handle the icky part of it, but I love the loving part of it. Watching my mom do that with my grandpa, I learned that it was just a much better setting than a large facility. We took him to a few respite stays because I played college sports and we needed some breaks here and there, and he would plummet downhill just because of the care that they provided.
So let's give everybody a background real quick on what's the difference between an assisted living facility and essentially it's called a residential assistant, RAL, right, in your world. So tell me a little bit about the difference between those two things. So my grandma actually did residential assisted living, and she had a couple people living with her, and she would take care of them. That's how she made money in her, retirement years. And then she ended up going into a regular assisted living facility, and it was horrible. I remember, in high school, college, and after, like visiting, and the smell, and just the people, like, it was horrible. It wasn't. It was like institutional. It was like, army barracks, and it was horrible. And that's the last place I would ever want to, spend the last days of my life, So talk a little bit about the difference. Like, what's the difference between a traditional assisted living and a residential assisted living?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. One of my residents once said that when she came from an assisted living, she felt like it was an old people factory. Very institutional, very cold, and we're a home. That's the biggest difference right there. Residential assisted livings have to be in a home. They are not commercial properties. So we custom built a home, and we have 10 to 12 residents that live in the home, 1 to 5, 1 to 6 ratio, so it's extremely hands-on.
Meaning one caretaker to 5 to 6 residents.
So that's the biggest difference right there, is the hands-on care approach that we offer. Home-cooked meals. I do the shopping on Instacart, and the food gets delivered to the home, the girls do all the cooking. So it's more like being at home. I always say we're one big dysfunctional family, which is really what we
Yeah.
are. And the larger facilities, I mean, they have their purpose. Not everybody's a good fit for our setting. People that are a little more active and still going out and things like that, those senior apartments are great for them. Assisted livings, unfortunately, you know, it's just become one of those things where staffing is an issue everywhere, and they're just not finding enough hands-on to take care of the amount of people that are in these larger facilities. So we pride ourselves in, we always are very hands-on.
Yeah. And I think from a business perspective, there's no like residential assisted living zoning though, right?
No.
You're essentially a group home.
You are. We are licensed in the state of Ohio as an adult group home.
Which is anything under the sun could be essentially could be a halfway house, right? Of people who are trying to get sober. It could be single mothers. There could be I don't know, people who come out of jail in like a transitional home like that,
absolutely.
or like an assisted living for senior citizens. So it's whatever you want it to be, but it's still under the same general umbrella,
It
right?
is, yes. We've been licensed through the state of Ohio Department of Health, but now they actually transitioned the smaller homes. So to be an adult group home, it has to be under 16 beds in a residential area.
Under 16 beds
Yes.
in a residential area. Does it matter how many bedrooms?
It doesn't, no. You just get licensed versus the space in the room and how many people you can put in them.
Okay. And then so, all right, so you're growing up, you're watching your mom take care of your grandparents and realizing that all the other options are, almost, they're very sad options, right? And you want to do this. How did you get started into, like, you go through college and you're like, oh, this is what I want to do and here's the process that I want to take. Like, how did that even get rolling?
So a little segue too, my dad found out about something called adult family care. And after my grandpa passed away, our home felt kind of empty because he was with us for almost 5 years before he passed away. And we actually took people into the home that I was growing up in, and we took care of them in our home. So I watched my mom kind of do that, mom and pop. It wasn't a business. My mom provided all of the care for everybody. And so I saw that. And
How did they get paid?
private pay.
So it's private
It's
pay.
all private pay.
They wrote a check
The
to
families
your
wrote a check.
parents. How much did your parents charge?
At the time, I think they started at $2,500, and I think they.
That's still a lot of money.
It is, yeah.
That was a lot of money back then.
It was.
I mean, I say back then.
Well, it was
what
almost
15, 20 years
yeah,
ago?
absolutely.
Yeah. And then I'm sure we'll get into it, but you're at like 5,000 to 6,000 now?
Yeah, I have care levels and then private rooms, so anywhere between 4,500 and 6,000.
Going back, so your parents essentially started doing this in your own home.
Yes.
And you had, adoptive grandparents that would come in and you'd hang out and they'd spend the holidays with you guys,
Absolutely.
all that stuff.
And their families too, so they became like an extended family.
That's cool. Yeah, it's an amazing way to really, ingrain other people into your family, your life, and be able to meet some amazing individuals and really dive into, build a deep relationship with them. So, all right, so you did that, or that was going on when you were in college,
High school into college, yes.
and then you're like, I could just do this with a whole home.
Absolutely. That is exactly what I said. I watched my mom doing it, and she is truly a saint. And she was doing all of the care by herself. I knew that, once again, I wasn't going to be the caretaker end of it, but I wanted to provide a smaller home setting. So I actually, one of my marketing projects in college, I did a business plan for this. And I knew that.
Oh, really?
I did. Yeah, it was.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I did my business plan. And I don't come from money. I didn't have money, so I started my business right out of college on a credit card and $5,000 of work study money that I.
Me too.
I know. We talked about that before when we met. I'm like, well, no kidding.
Yeah.
So that's how it all started, and 13 and a half years later, here we are.
Wild. So the first one though, you didn't go and buy a house. You found a house. I think you rented it or something.
I did.
And then you essentially, like, there's people who arbitrage rents on Airbnb. They'll go and rent a house for $1,500 a month and throw it on Airbnb, and then they make $4,500 a month, and it's a cash flow play. Yours, there's a lot more juice in that squeeze.
Yeah.
If you go and rent a house for $2,000 a month, and then you have 5 bedrooms, and you put a person in each one, that's $25,000 a month. But there's a lot more overhead. I want to talk on kind of like the elements and the pillars that we teach like Commercial Empire on is like, how'd you find the deals, right? How do you fund it? How do you, how do you like underwrite it? And then what does the operations look like? So like, let's go through, and then exit strategies also too. So let's go through each one of those. So how would somebody find these deals? If you were going to look for another location, what are some like key factors that you would look for?
Absolutely. So the way I started my first home, it was the market just crashed. It was 2008, 2009 when I graduated. So there were a lot of properties that were actually willing to look into this concept. So I started just cold calling. I would find listings on Zillow and things like that and call and say, hey, would you be willing to rent? This is what I want to do in your home. And of course, I got a million people telling me absolutely not. What's the liability on this? I don't want to touch it. And then I found a gentleman who...
Does the home need to be zoned for commercial?
The homes have to be residential. They have to be in residential zoning. So that made it a little easier, actually.
So it actually makes it easier unless it's in like a homeowners association that probably...
Which I wouldn't touch that. I learned a lesson a hard way with that once. So I wouldn't go into HOAs because they have their own bylaws that you have to follow, and most of them don't allow businesses. So I wouldn't touch that. But yeah, rentals is a good way to start. It's actually how I started my first home. I rented from this gentleman, and after 5 years, I wanted to purchase the home from him, and he wasn't willing to sell it. So I ended up finding land and building my own.
So like... Did you offer him a premium, or did he want a premium on the rent because of what you were doing?
Yeah, so we went into it kind of tiptoeing. I mean, I basically said, here's my business plan. This is what I would like to do in your home. And he's like, let's try this out for a year. So he did kind of have me after that because he knew, like, okay, she's bringing in this much revenue from this home. He did start raising my rent. And that was part of the reason I wanted to purchase the home, so that I had a hard asset to lean on instead of just paying him huge rental amounts.
That's the beauty of it. It's not just, it's real estate, and then you also own the real estate. Like I have buddies who own gyms, right? And I'm like, dude, you should own the real estate that you're renting from every single day. And eventually over the next 20 years, you're gonna own that piece of property free and clear, have an asset that's worth, millions of dollars potentially, and also still have your business. If you sell a consulting business, that's not friggin' really worth much, But if you have a tangible asset, that's worth a lot more. And you have good systems. We'll dive into the systems and operations. So obviously, if this is a home that somebody's looking to rent, I would assume for elderly people, you want everything on the one level?
Yeah, preferably. There are some people that do open these homes and they'll put like chair lifts and things like that. To me personally, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Just too much liability?
Liability aspect, and it's a turnoff. You're going to cater to a smaller group of people. A lot of families aren't going to want their loved ones upstairs, especially if they have dementia and Alzheimer's. And
then I would think, like an Airbnb, it's the more people you can sleep in a house, the better. And so similarly here, how many bedrooms do you have? And I would think bathrooms too would be a big deal.
Kind of. We do deal with the population extremely incontinent as well. So it is important to the families.
Which means they poop their pants?
Yeah, basically. In layman's terms, thanks, Tim.
I shouldn't laugh. Sorry.
So yes, they need to, but yes, bathrooms are important too. I would say more of the living space besides even the bedrooms. They don't spend a lot of time in their bedrooms in our homes. We keep them out and try to keep them engaged. So living space, I would say living room, dining room areas where they're out and about mostly. And bright. I always tell people that are looking to do this, find bright spaces.
Yeah, you don't want dark and dingy and whatever. No, and I've been to the house that you have, and you give me tours of it, and it's a home. You walk in, there's a Christmas tree at Christmas time, and you got Thanksgiving dinner being cooked, and a big, decorations everywhere, and the ladies are getting their fingernails painted, and you got somebody come and do their hair once a month or whatever that is, and it's like it's a home that you want to go and visit your grandparents in, or your parents in. It's like it makes everybody feel more comfortable. Okay, so. You understand I understand the framework of it, the kind of house that you're looking for. How do you go out and find people that can pay $5,000 or $6,000 a month to do this?
Well, what's crazy is we're like half the cost of nursing homes. So we're still...
But you don't take insurance, right?
We don't. So we are private pay only, but we're still half the cost of nursing homes. So we have a lot of people that go to our nursing homes and will come to us and they'll be like, how are you half this and you're all inclusive? Because our rates are all inclusive. So
of food, of
everything.
Nails, hair,
incontinence products, toiletries, linens. I provide everything for our residents in the home. But basically, how do I find the people? I started from the ground up, guerrilla marketing. I put my brochures everywhere. Our biggest filler, and it's always been this way, is word of mouth. Families that I took care of 3, 5, 6 years ago are still sending me people. And it's really what sustained my business for 13 and a half years and has continued to keep it.
Are there certain give me some deeper strategies, ninja secrets that, like, who are the professionals that would refer people to you?
Oh,
Are
yeah.
there, I don't know, do you partner with doctors' offices or anything along those lines?
So along the years, early on, I went to every elder law attorney.
Elder law
attorneys is a big one.
Okay.
I went to every one of them. I went to social workers in hospitals, which they're hard to get into because they're very busy. But once you start getting some inroads, it also helps that when our residents that had to go to the hospital or their own doctors, and the doctors there were like, wow, this person's really clean. The people that come from nursing homes, their fingernails are usually dirty,
Yep.
their hair is clean, they
Yep.
don't smell. Where are you living? So that was a big thing for us too, that started getting our name out there. Really helped with, our image, because we really do strive to be on top of that stuff. And I would say ultimately elder law attorneys, word of mouth, and social workers. And then eventually, once facilities realize that you're not really competing with them, you're your own niche, I started getting some referrals from families that couldn't afford nursing homes. And they'd be like, well, there's this house down the street, why don't you check it out? And kind of scratch their back too. If they needed physical therapy that it was a little more strenuous than what we can provide in the home, we would send them back to them for physical therapy and things like that.
That's great. So if somebody goes into a nursing home, but if they're on like Medicaid or whatever, that pays for all of it though, doesn't it?
I really don't know a ton about Medicaid because I've never had to deal with it, thank God. But no, it doesn't.
Or what about insurance? Does insurance pay for all of it or no?
It
They're
doesn't.
still out of pocket?
They come out of pocket for a little bit. So whatever their Social Security or retirement that they're bringing in, I believe is how it works. But Medicare, so say the bed is $12,000 a month. Medicare doesn't pay $12,000 a month. They only have say there's 300 beds in a nursing home, from my understanding. Maybe 50 of them are Medicare beds, Medicaid beds.
Oh, okay.
So they only get reimbursed for what the insurance is willing to reimburse them for.
So we know how to find the real estate. We know how to find the tenants, right? Or start growing the business on that side of things. I love that there's two angles, right? In order to get this up and off the ground. Obviously, you need to be able to outfit a house, but there's not a huge upfront cost if you're renting a property outside of buying it. And you can really arbitrage quite a bit, and exactly what you did for 4 or 5 years is grow the cash flow and then be able to go buy your own or build your own place exactly how you want it. So as far as so I think that kind of handles the funding side of things. Let's talk a little bit about operations. So if you have up to 16 people, and your home can do 16?
12.
It's 12,
Yeah.
that's right. 12, paying an average of, let's call it $5,000 a month. That's $60,000 a month in revenue coming in.
Right.
You got almost if you had 16 people, you'd have a $1 million a year business,
Right.
In gross revenue. What does the overhead look like?
Our profit margins vary between 30 and 40%.
Damn, that's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. The biggest cost is caregivers, because you want to pay for quality people. And then the next highest thing is groceries, because they 3 meals a day, snacks, drinks, and everything. Besides that,
You let them drink alcohol?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have, we celebrate their birthdays. I get them cakes. The families come, we do parties. Absolutely. We bring champagne for them. And they're 90. We have a 105-year-old next week. She's turning 105.
Wow.
So they can live how they want to live.
Yeah.
As long as, of course, with their medications. But the doctors and the families say whatever they want.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So if you're bringing in 60 grand a month, you're spending about 36,000 of that, let's say, towards overhead on salaries, and you need somebody there 24 hours a day. So really you need, if you got 12 people, you said you have at least 2 people for every, or one for every 6 clients, residents,
Yes.
we'll call them. And so you have 2 people.
On during the day and 1 on at night.
Okay, so if there's 8-hour shifts, you have 2.
12-hour shifts.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So then you have 2 during the day and then 1 on at night.
Yep.
So really you're only paying for 3 salaries per day.
Correct.
Right? And then your mom is also the nurse?
She is. So my mom is the nurse. She retired from her home, and I ended up, obviously doing this for the past 13 and a half years. She came to start working for me, and she's been the nurse. And really, she acts more as a day-to-day manager. These homes, technically, with the state license, they're non-medical homes. You bring any medical service in. You bring in the physician, the podiatrist, the physical therapy companies. That all comes in through insurance, which is awesome. But it's still nice to have a nurse on deck. The families want it. They appreciate it, because we can triage with the doctors and say, hey.
There's a level of comfort there,
Oh,
for
absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. Right. And, but she really acts more as like a day-to-day manager of the home.
how can you scale this, right? Because if you're clearing $24,000 a month, that's essentially $300,000 a year. After all salaries, including your mom's salary, right? Because she's not working for free.
Correct.
You pay her.
Oh, absolutely.
You pay for all the food, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, your mortgage and everything, rent, whatever that looks like, comes out of all that. But you're making $300,000 per house per year, right? You're really focused on what the marketing to make sure that resident beds are always filled up, and just kind of ensuring everything's works smooth for the staff, right? And probably staffing has been a big thing too. Well, before we get into scale, well, it's part of the scale, is how do you scale a staff, right? There's not a lot of people probably raising their hands to, clean up and wipe asses, right, of elderly folks, right?
It's
I mean that in the most respectful way possible.
Course.
You know what I mean? Like it's like there's just not a lot of people who want to.
It's a thankless job.
I want to do. It is. That's a very and especially over the past 2 years, where I mean I think you mentioned you were paying people 8, 10, 12 an hour before.
When I started, yeah.
And then over the course of the past 2 years, with people being essentially paid to stay at home, what does that look like now?
I've increased since. We'll say pre-COVID is what I call it. Pre-COVID times, post-COVID times, I've had to increase $3, $4 an hour.
Like 15?
Yeah.
That's got to be hard to scale, I would think. Is that probably your biggest bottleneck in being able to
Staffing
open up secondary and third?
Is the hardest part. And it'd be one thing. There are people, I do consulting as well, and I help people open these homes. And there are people that do it like my mom did, and they live in the home and take care of them. Or they do it how I do. I'm a very hands-on owner, and my mom is in the home. And, there's a lot of owners that are now doing it more of like a corporate style. So they're opening these homes. They're getting a manager, a Marie, as I call it, and they're having them,
your mom?
Yes, 1 or 2 homes and managing them. Then when they open up a couple more homes, they're getting another manager because really at the end.
I mean, you need one nurse, and they can spend 2 hours at each property, and you have 3 or 4 different homes. Like that could lower the overhead and really offer a lot of scale if they're in a decent vicinity. But is there enough demand?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think COVID kickstarted that even more. People really wanting their loved ones in a smaller setting.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it ran through, that West Coast assisted living. Like one of my biggest lenders is actually owns a bunch of assisted living facilities, and they got clobbered when COVID hit, and they pretty much all but shut down everything else that they did in order to just try to keep their head above water in that space. And so I can see a big shift over to that. And I know you consult on some other. Is there a reason why you've never wanted to scale it? Is it because of lifestyle? I know you had your son, and or is it just I'm good, or I'm still looking to do that, or what does that look like?
I'm always looking for signs, and timing is a big thing for me. And I have other ventures that I'm into as well. I got my real estate license, so I dabble with that a little bit. I writing a book, and that's about to be out. I had a son. So to me, it really has become more of a lifestyle business. Once you get these homes up and running and you have the staff in place and a manager in place, it really does become mailbox money.
Yeah.
I'm not there every day. I do the tours, I do the QuickBooks, I do the staff payroll setup and things like that. That's really my end of things that I handle now. The manager in the home is really who handles the day-to-day operation of it.
No, I love it. I know we talked about doing hey, let's take a little development and put 8 houses all together, and you have one marketing manager that can market all of them all the time. You have one bookkeeper that can handle all the books for everything. You have one nurse that can just spend an hour at each one of the houses each
And there
day.
are people doing that now.
Yeah.
I just, like I said, it became more of a lifestyle business for me. I'm kicking off enough cash where I can have a lifestyle. I'm not tied anywhere. I can travel as I please, and to me, that's very important. I did buy the lot next door to my home in Brecksville. So if I wanted to build another one, I have the opportunity to.
You should.
Probably not right now because the cost of everything is extremely high, but I definitely have the opportunity to if I want to.
So what do exit strategies look like for somebody who's in this business? Is it to roll it up and sell it to one of these larger firms? Is it to sell it to them? Is it contributed as equity to the larger thing and try to keep making some cash flow off of it, just sit on it forever? I do like the idea that there's a house, So if you decide to shut down the business, you still sell the real estate to somebody who's not only running a assisted living facility, But what are some of the exit strategies that you've seen people move toward, and Yeah, I mean, are you just planning on hanging on or what?
Once again, I'm kind of up in the air with it too.
Mm-hmm.
Some days when your
You
staff no
can
calls,
be bought though, right? You can be bought.
Everyone
so.
has a price. I do too. You know, it's hard some days when the staff no call, no shows 3 times in 1 week. I'm
Yeah.
ready to sell it all and be done. But
Yeah.
when you go in there and you spend time with these people,
Yeah, there's a greater good.
it's a greater good, and you know, we know that at the end of the day we're doing right by these people. So it will be hard. It was my first baby,
Yeah.
so it will be hard to walk away from. I've had many offers over the last 13 and a half years. None of them were good enough for. I'm 35. I'm not ready to retire yet.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people that get into this, their main goal is probably to open up 5 to 10 of these and then sell them to a bigger corporation.
I mean, yeah, if you can get 5 of them, you know, you're making 300. There might be even more. I mean, you're an owner-operator, so there's some staff that you're not paying for, but at the same time, if you have scale, I mean, you're probably still making $300,000 a year per house, times 5 houses. The business alone, and you know, is probably worth, I don't know, at least in a multiple of 5 to 8, I would think.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, that's $1.5 million times, you know, you're looking at probably $10 million exit on top of the real estate price as well.
Right.
So
that's an angle some people are taking. A lot of these larger facilities like nursing homes are actually putting smaller homes on their property sites now because it is something that families are really, you know, want to be in a smaller setting. So I know a couple nursing homes are trying to do these homes on their premises that they already have.
I like, my favorite part of it is you don't have the handcuffs on you like a larger assisted living facility. You know, you can figure out a way to create scale, and at the same time, like you guys have somebody come through once a year and just make sure there's locks on the doors, everything opens and shuts, right? Like locks on the windows.
We have an annual state inspection just like a facility does, but our parameters are different obviously than a larger facility, but it is a full inspection.
Yeah. And then what does the insurance look like real quick?
You know, once again, COVID really jacked that up. It's almost double what I started paying.
Yeah.
You're probably anywhere in the ballpark.
Is that more because of
COVID completely? That was the only thing that changed.
It's all because of COVID because elder folks living in a community together were more susceptible to passing away due to COVID coming out, right? So it doesn't have to do necessarily with, I don't know, somebody trying to get out the front door and more neglect on the operational side.
I'm sure that's a part of it. You know, some insurance companies will not touch group homes at all because of the liability aspect.
Well, most of them aren't as, one fucking little fly keeps flying around. I'm gonna murder, I'm gonna punch it in the fucking face.
I almost caught it. I'll get it. I'm really good at it. Like ninja.
But what I like, I mean, this type of group home though is very different than all the other ones, because all the other ones, you're dealing with rehab addicts, you're dealing with people who are just in jail, you're dealing with people who have drama all around their life. Like this is the most, but it's still grouped in with all those.
It is.
You know? Yeah, so, no, I think it's an amazing, amazing business model. I know we've talked about it and we've revisited this, you know, every 12 to 18 months. We go, hey, how do we do more? How do we do this? How do we do that? And I think it's a cool business, especially if, you know, especially for an owner operator who wants to kind of create a business that can generate multiple 6 figures a year and have some lifestyle that comes with it. If you want to scale it, great. If you don't want to, no sweat. But you could probably sell it for a couple $1 million, I would think, you know, $1.5 million to $2 million eventually. And then you take that money and you roll it into investments with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
At 12%. Yeah. And you make 20 grand a month for the rest of your life without having to do anything.
I'm good with that. Let's do that. Find me a buyer and then we'll talk.
All right, she can be bought, guys. All right, so I want to. So first of all, amazing, congratulations.
Thank you.
You've been an amazing friend, and it's just awesome to see you winning at a high level. And Connor's a great dude too, and it's always fun hanging out with you guys and knowing kind of what that path looks like, as far as, you know, your successes and continuing down the road of building the business and helping other people. Your mom. And I remember sitting down in Lakewood at Deegan's and you sharing the story of your mom's background. And so it was so remarkable, right? And so unbelievable of a story that we're like, holy shit, you need to write a book on this. And that was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that, you know? And I mean, do we want to tell the whole story? Do we want to?
I can set it up, giving them enough that they're going to want more.
Well, here's
Yeah.
the thing. You shared the book,
Yeah.
right? And actually, one of the people who spoke at one of our Legacy Summit events is his company is the one who put the book together for you. And even though I know the story, right, I'm reading the book and I've gone through the first couple of chapters, of which goes deep into stuff that I didn't know originally. And I'm like, holy shit, like this is an intense story. So can you give everybody a little bit of background on what happened with your mom?
Yeah.
And she came from Ireland, right, was raised in a church type setting. Let's give a little bit of background on what was happening in the 50s and 60s in Ireland during that time.
Absolutely. So there were mother and baby homes. There were 18 of them in Ireland, and the nuns and the priests were running them through the Catholic Church. And women that were pregnant out of wedlock were sent there. They were sent there by their local priests or their families because of the shame of being pregnant out of wedlock. And my mom was born in one of those homes.
So somebody gets pregnant. As soon as the priest finds out, like they essentially abduct the girl who's pregnant. Teenage, or even, it doesn't matter, as long as they're not married, they abduct the girl and take her to one of these church, facility kind of things. And they have them live there. And what did that look like? Like what kind of environment was that for these young, pregnant females, right, out of wedlock? Like, what did that look like?
It was basically prison. They were forced to work 14-hour days until they gave birth, and up until the point they gave birth. Then when they gave birth, they were not given any medications. They were not giving, if they had an infection afterwards, it was their penance to not get medications, and a lot of them died because of it. They found mass graves of over 800 babies and mothers on one of the sites there, and that really cracked this open about 5 to 10 years ago.
So they would just let the mother be in pain while they're giving birth. If the baby was defective or if the mother got sick, they let them die. They didn't. It's what they deserved because they got pregnant out of wedlock, and they would bury them in a grave unmarked and cover it up with some dirt and move on, right?
Absolutely.
And so what would happen if the mother survived and the baby survived?
So the more we found out about this, many of the mothers were, like I said, it was prison. They had to serve their time 2 years. If the family had money.
After the baby was born?
After the baby was born. They had to stay there and work in the laundries. A lot of the, not a lot, most of the women were allowed to leave only if the parents or a family member who sent them there paid for them to leave within the first 2 weeks. So we basically deep dived into that aspect, but that's really not Marie's story. It's just where her story began. Because she was taken from her mother there, and the biggest piece of this was when the Catholic Church started selling these babies to wealthy American and European families.
Which is where your mom was born, in one of these facilities. Her mother got pregnant out of wedlock, went to one of these facilities, didn't get to see her for the first 2 years. She was working 14 hours a day. At most, it was like, 10 minutes a day or 10 minutes a week or something like that, that you got to actually spend time with your baby. And otherwise, the babies were kept separate from the mothers. And then these priests and these nuns ended up marketing the kids
like a catalog, a baby
to
catalog.
wealthy families in the United States, and all these kids would get adopted unbeknownst to the mothers, and they never get to see their child again.
Never again, and never be told where they were sent.
And your mom was one of those 2-year-olds who got adopted, taken to the United States, to Cleveland, Ohio, right, and adopted by a loving family here in the United States, right?
Unfortunately not. They were 2 alcoholics, and her torture started the day she got in town.
And it was even worse here in her adoptive family than it was in that what do they call it?
The mother and baby homes, orphanages, whatever.
Over in Ireland. So her adoptive mother was extremely abusive, beat her, starved her,
worked her like a dog.
Right? She learned to fend for herself by the time she was 5-6 years old. And they adopted another Irish child, right? A little boy. And then he came over, and he was, I think, a year younger than your mom?
A year older.
A year older than your mom? And
it got worse.
And it got even worse, right? Because he didn't battle back like your mom would. And so 2 alcoholics going through, like, being being verbally abused, emotionally abused, physically abused. That's not good for your self-esteem.
No.
And so she ends up, getting to an age where I think she left when she was, 16? Left the house when she was 16 years old. And that's where I haven't been. You just sent me it a couple of days ago,
Yeah.
so that's where I'm at right now in the book.
Yeah.
But I know a little bit more about the story. So she goes on, ends up going through life and gets married, right? Has 2 children, wants to have a third one, doesn't have enough money to have a third one, so she gets another job, and then the third child's you.
Yep.
You end up, growing up. She becomes a nurse, and she's working in your nursing in your assisted living, residential assisted living. She's making more money, has more time freedom. You are making money, and all of this gets opened up. Like, she didn't ever know anything about her original birth mother.
Nothing.
And it comes to a point where it's like, holy shit, this was actually happening. And they just made a movie about it a couple years ago. I watched that too.
Philomena.
Philomena.
I think I'm the one that told you to watch
did.
that.
And it's insane. It's you can't believe that this stuff even happens. And so when that opened up, you guys started doing a deep dive.
Yeah.
And everything that your mom's adoptive mother told her about her mother, that she was dead, and your mom never believed. And so you guys are like, you know what? Like, you being an amazing daughter is like, hey, let's go to Ireland and let's go and trace back the family. Let's take everything that we know and let's go and see what we can find. Give me a little, I get the chills thinking about it because I know the story. Give me a little bit about the background.
You may have cried a little bit too, or he had something in his eye.
In both my eyes.
Well, it's powerful. I mean, my mom's life is a powerful journey, and that's why I told her we need to make this. Everyone said it's going to be a movie, but it had to be a book first. It's a story that needs to be told. But basically, Philomena, it was the Kickstarter for us too. My mom went and saw Philomena, and when she got home, she told me about it, and she goes, I felt so sorry for myself my whole life. She's like, I didn't even think about what my mom went through, being a child being stolen from her. And
she probably didn't know that that's what happened.
She
we
thought
didn't
she was know
up for adoption.
Yeah, she didn't know, and it made her angry. It made her upset, and as our mother and daughter friendship grew, we didn't only work together, but we became best friends over the years. And it broke my heart having our relationship and knowing that she just wanted to know where she came from. Do I look like her? Did she want me? Just those things, it killed me. And you know me, if I put my mind to something, chances are I'm gonna get it done. And I made that my main focus for almost 3 years.
So we gotta tell the story. Because there's gonna be people who go out and get the book, and the book is even more in depth than what we can ever share here. But you guys end up going to Ireland, with not that much information.
Not that much.
And you just start talking to people, like your Uber driver, while you're in Ireland a few years ago.
Yeah.
So unwrap that.
Okay, so 5 years ago, literally in August will be 5 years that we embarked on this journey. Facebook actually helped unravel some things. They have mother and baby home sites for the children that are looking for their parents. And we found a genealogist on there, and he pushed my mom and urged her to get a DNA test. So that kind of cracked open an area. We knew that there were 2 specific towns that she had cousins in, and they were like second cousins, so it was a really good link. So our goal that day was to...
Meaning this is like a son or a daughter of a cousin, right?
So we ended up hitting the ground running. Our plan, which in our minds it was all set out, I was going to rent a car and we were just going to land and drive to these 2 towns. I've been to Ireland several times, and driving over there on the other side of the road in a small car, I started panicking on the flight, and I go, you know what, Mom, I think we're going to have to rent a car. And divine intervention, the car we got in is
with the driver.
The driver is one of the reasons that led us straight to our family. I was supposed to drive.
So you're talking to this random driver. I didn't want to drive myself. Here's what we're here for. My mom was taken away because of this and that, and we think it was in this town. And you're going down the story, and what does he say?
Do you mind if I make a few calls for you? And I'm like, absolutely. Do what you need to do. He goes, besides driving, I play music in the pubs, and I know people in all of these towns, so I'm going to start calling them while we're heading that way. I'm like, perfect. So he starts making all these calls. Just randomly, hey, do you know this name? Because like I said, we had the cousins. We had a family tree built by then.
So you had the cousins, and did you have your mom's maiden name?
We did. So we eventually, before we left, got a letter from Catholic Charities because all those bodies were found. So they started answering a lot more questions than they did originally. And she did find out her mother's name at one point in time. So we knew the maiden name. was O'Leary.
So, but there's probably a shitload of O'Learys in Ireland.
A ton. I friended all of them on Facebook and was asking all about it, and there were a ton of them.
Yeah. So it's like Smith in the United States.
Basically,
You're like,
yeah.
okay, who do I start with? So you go and find all the O'Learys in this town, make some phone calls, but you had her mother's first name too.
I did, Anastasia O'Leary.
Okay, which is a much less common
It is,
name.
yeah. Thank God it wasn't like Bridget or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got in his car and he started calling people. And the last call he made was a guy named, I shit you not, John Lennon. And I looked over to my mom. I go, this guy is fucking with us.
Yeah.
He's messing with us. And he turns around and goes, I swear to God, that's his real name. And calls him. And John Lennon said, you know what? Take them back to their hotel. Let them get settled in. Why don't you drive, strangers? Why don't you drive the information that they have down there, make copies at the hotel and bring it down to me and we'll start looking into this for you. Strangers. Kind strangers.
Yeah.
And one of them ended up being my mom's second cousin.
No way.
John Lennon's wife
Really?
was my mom's second cousin.
So meets the second, which is the daughter, your age.
Yes.
Of your mom's first cousin.
Yep.
Of your mom's Okay, so now, so this is all right, so your mom's mom, right? Her sibling, their child, somebody.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So we now had a link to the exact town that they were from.
Yeah.
They said, cancel your hotel stay after like however long yours, come down here and stay with us and we'll keep working on this for you. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm
In
not
their house?
In their house. The kindness of strangers. In America, I'd be like, they're going to murder us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Totally.
because it's Ireland, I've been to Ireland several times. I got engaged in Ireland. They're just the most kind people. You'd be walking down the road, they'd be like, come in, have a cup of tea and a pint,
Yeah.
Are you hungry? Let me make you a sandwich over here. And that's literally how they are.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think about it after. I had the first thought of, they're going to murder us, but it's Ireland.
It'll make for a good story.
Yeah, what's going to, we're
roll.
here, let's do it,
So you go down there, you stay with this
John Lennon and his family. Yep.
who's your second cousin.
Yep.
Or your mom's second
mom's
cousin,
second
your
cousin.
third, I guess, or
Yeah.
whatever that ends
Yep.
up being. And so what do they say? Like,
They called Seamus, who was the town historian, and he'd been there his whole life. And John did this without us knowing to get more information. And he's like, if anybody knows anything about where Anne might be, Anastasia, it would be Seamus. So call Seamus. Seamus's wife, Betty, is my mom's first cousin.
okay. So is that their mom?
Their moms were sisters.
Yeah, no, but okay. So they're related.
The book isn't this
to,
confusing.
So they're related to the person that you were hanging out with, though.
Yeah.
Right?
So yes, they were. So
You guys are all cousins. So
yeah.
everybody's family. Okay.
Yep. But first
So
cousin.
Now, now
we
we're
found a
first cousin. Now we're closer. Okay. What does he say?
He says, do you mind if Seamus and his wife Betty come over? We're going to have dinner and we'll talk to them and see if they know anything. So they came over, we had dinner that night, and unfortunately, my Nana was one of 14 children. So there were a lot of cousins.
Wow.
Yes. So she unfortunately didn't know where she was. But she said, if somebody will, it will be Mari. She is the daughter of Anne's sister. And they were best friends. They were the two oldest, and they were best friends. If anybody knows where Anastasia is, she would. So then it was the mission to get a hold of Mari.
And Maury's the older sister of your grandma?
Mari is the daughter. So it would be my mom's first cousin as well.
Oh, okay. Got it. And they were best friends with Anastasia?
Yes.
Okay. Should we stop it here? Let's keep rolling.
Yeah.
All right. Now this is it's wild. All right. So now you're at the first cousin. Then where do you guys go?
We ended up in her living room. John Lennon and Seamus got a hold of her, and they drove us on a beautiful tour of the Wicklow Mountains. Unbeknownst to us, she called them back, and we ended up in her living room. And she told us that as of 12 weeks...
And she's grandma age, right?
She's my mom, a little older than my mom, probably
Okay.
So her mother passed 12 weeks ago, and her mother and Anne were sisters, and they were best friends. She goes, I called your mom 12 weeks ago, and she answered the phone.
And you, because your mom thinks that her mom's dead. All you guys went,
We assumed she was dead.
and all you guys wanted was answers about
Pictures,
the
did she look
backstory.
like her?
Yep.
Like, yeah, find out any information.
And you find out she's still alive as
12
of
weeks ago.
3 months
Yeah.
prior to your visit.
Yep, because Mari's mom passed away, and she called to tell her she passed away, and she answered the phone. So as of then, we now found out that she was alive 12 weeks ago. But the kicker is this: we're sitting in a cute little cottage in Ireland. We found out she moved to England. So if she was alive, she lived in England.
She lived in England.
Yes, she started a family there. They didn't have work in Ireland, and that's where she moved when she got married.
So she goes to England. You guys are like, we're going to England too.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you guys get in the car or go down to England. And what's the town?
It's called Middlesbrough, Cleveland.
Cleveland, England, right? So you guys go to Cleveland, England.
I know, it's unbelievable. I lived it, and I literally, it took me months to process after.
You
all
guys
the
go to
content.
Cleveland, England, and you end up meeting who?
So before that, Mari got a hold of my mom's half-siblings. So she found out that she had 2 half-sisters and a half-brother, and we got a hold of them, and they're the ones that gave us the green light to come. So I bought a ticket that night and got us on a plane that following morning, and we were in Middlesbrough, England, the following morning by 10 a.m. and en route to meet her mother for the first time.
But didn't you guys meet one of the siblings first?
Yeah, they picked us up from the airport.
So this is your mom's
Half-sister,
half-brother.
Yes.
And that's who you guys got connected
Yep.
with. Not your mom, not your grandma's. It's your actual mom's half-brother, half-sister, who she never knew that she ever had.
Never.
All
And
of
they
a
knew
sudden,
nothing of her either.
Which explain that portion, right? Because they had talked to your grandma, and what did they say?
So the night.
Or how did that go? How did
Yeah,
that conversation go?
I would have loved to have been a fly on the
Oh my
wall,
gosh.
but we got the scope of it, and they went there and told her, Mom, there is somebody sitting in Mari's living room in Ireland right now saying that she's your daughter. Did you have a child before us? And she went, no. And then Jimmy, my uncle, goes, Mom, it's okay. Like, she says, she's your daughter. And Mari said, she looks just like you. Did you have a child before us? And she goes, I did. And
She'd been living, and how old was she at the time?
we found her 3 days before her 90th birthday.
She'd been living her 70 years plus, not holding in a secret, not telling a single soul, her husband, her other kids, anybody, that this ever occurred.
Correct.
And finally spills the beans
Spilled the beans.
and says, she didn't even say anything. She said yes, and then you said she retreated to her room,
Yeah,
right?
Mary goes, they're going to be here tomorrow morning. She goes, all right, now off to bed, toodaloo, and went to bed. And we arrived the next morning.
So they picked you up from the airport. Did you go straight to?
We went straight to.
You go straight there. What happens as your mom knocks on the door?
First of all, I was filming behind, and I was getting my phone out ready to film, and she's walking up the little walkway to go into the house, and she stops in her tracks, and I ran right into her.
Your mom did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I go, we've come this far. There's no stopping now. We are going. She's like, I know, I need a second. And so she had to gather herself, and we walked right up to the door, and they grabbed each other. And we
she knocked on the door.
Yeah, knocked on the door.
Opens the door.
And she looks at her, and I have a video of it in the pictures.
Yeah.
It make me cry now. And they just embrace, and then they walk to. Sorry.
But your mom looks at her mom.
Yeah, for the first time.
And what does she say?
She goes, "Are you all right?"
And what did your grandma say?
I am now.
Insane, insane, bawling. Like they embrace, they hug, they sit next to each other on the couch, they talk for hours and hours and hours, right? And I remember you telling me your grandma was known as somebody who was very didn't give a lot of hugs, didn't really wasn't warm, was very not cold, but just not warm. Didn't hold people's
my
hands.
mom's a hugger, a lover. She showed her love in different ways.
And your grandma holds your mom's hand
the entire time
for 3-4 hours straight, not letting her go.
2 days straight. We were there for 2 days. They did not stop touching the entire time. They held arms, they held hands. I just got goosebumps. They did not let go of each other.
Didn't she live on a street? She lived on Cleveland Street, or
the town was Cleveland? The town that we stayed in a hotel.
And there was something
Cleveland.
almost 2, wasn't it?
So many things. You got to read the book. There's
Yeah,
so
there's
many things that are like mind-blowing,
Yeah.
that the coincidences and things that had to fall in place for this to happen.
Yeah. Wild. Wild.
We may have told you about the story, but there's so many
There's
things that
there's a lot more.
there's a lot more to it and how we ended up there.
And you guys have gone back multiple times.
Yeah.
You know, and now your mom's
We're
got
going back next week
brothers
too.
and sisters. Yeah. And you guys got to you guys got to read the book. It is so deep. It's wild.
August
wild.
29th, it'll be on Amazon.
Yeah. And it's called
I Knew You Were There.
I Knew You Were There. So you got to check it out. I appreciate you being here. Such a powerful story. I'm excited to read the rest of the book. We'll link it too in the YouTube links and share all that stuff so you guys can go check it out. It's a very easy read. It's like,
It is, yeah.
Like I sat there for, I don't know, a couple hours and I went through like a third of the book
Yeah.
right away.
We
And
kept
it's-
it under 200 pages.
Yeah,
so.
it's very quick. It's an easy read and just powerful. Like knowing all the adversities and stuff that your mom went through and knowing about the story and all the, like, how the stars aligned across the entire thing. And then, you know, hearing about it afterwards, it's just, it's a remarkable story. So,
And we're also donating a portion of the proceeds to Providence House, who helps protect abused and neglected children. So
love
that was
it.
very important for my mom.
yeah, yeah, I'd love to make a donation.
Awesome.
So, send me the link.
Will do.
But so good to see you. So good
too.
to hang out. Thank you for sharing the story. You know, send my best to your mom too.
will.
Give her a big hug for me. And I'm excited to read the rest of the book.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Intense, right? Like that storyline is so intense. I'm telling you, I read the first, the prologue and then the first 2 or 3 chapters of the book, and it's even more in detail and more eye-opening and jaw-dropping than what Megan and I got into right then and there. So go check out the book. It's actually going to drop tomorrow, August 29th on Amazon. It's called I Knew You Were There, and get your hands on a copy of that. Just amazing, amazing, powerful story. I know it's going to be turned into a movie. And again, it's a very easy read too. So show her some support and go pick up a copy of that. And hopefully you got a ton of value out of the residential assisted living discussions that we had going on too. Realizing that that's out there. That's a way that you can take a single family home and generate a lot more money. And even if you're not the operator yourself, who's to say that you couldn't go and find an operator like a Megan to come in, rent your property at a premium. Instead of getting $2,000 a month in rent, maybe you can get $4,000 or $5,000 a month in rent, allowing someone like her to come in, utilize a space, take on all the business responsibilities, and you just sit back and collect 2.5 times as much rent by partnering up with people who are great operators in that space. So just some things to think about. Understanding there's a lot of different ways to make money in real estate. And I think as you learn about each one of these different ways to generate revenue, you can take the good, leave the bad, and really sharpen your axe in whatever industry that you want to focus on, whatever asset class you want to focus on. So hopefully you got some takeaways. Put it in the comments below. Would love to hear your questions, your comments right here on the YouTube channel. I'll make a video and answer any sort of questions that you might have. And do me a favor, like the episode, and please share this. Subscribe to the channel as well, and share the video with some other people who would get a lot of value out of the residential assisted living side, or who just want their minds blown by one of the wildest stories you've ever heard. So I appreciate you guys being here. Until next time, I'll see you on Spill the Beans.